Now go.
I think you are now ready. Ready to hear what happened 100 years ago. The words of guidance you have been hearing since your awakening from Princess Zelda herself. Even now, as she works to restrain Ganon from within Hyrule Castle, she calls out for your help.
Hello and welcome back to Comics to Console Crusade. This is the podcast where Pat, Joe, and I comb through my extensive yard sale acquired retro video game collection to discuss the best and sometimes the worst of comic book oriented video games. Today's video game is Batman Vengeance. Before we get started, let's meet the host of the show. We'll introduce one another and ask each other to describe Batman Vengeance in 3 words. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Pat. Pat, would you be so kind as to give me the first 3 words that pop into your head when you think about Batman Vengeance?
Arkham Origin, maybe?
I like the 3rd word. Arkham Origin, maybe?
Maybe.
I see where you're going with this, Pat. I see where you're going with
Maybe. I was going to say I'm Vengeance, but
it's too on the nose.
Yeah, definitely. And let me introduce our on-staff musical genius, Joe November.
I'll be gone till November. I'll be gone till November.
Joe, how would you describe Batman Vengeance using only 3 words?
I'd say best game pre-Arkham, and pre-Arkham is 1 word.
Okay, I'll give you that. Are you saying that's a half-C's word?
Sure. If that's that'll get you sleep at night.
You get 3.5 C's of extra words here.
Nice. All right, and now I'll turn the question on to my old friend Jarrod Albrick, aka Death Pro. Jarrod, please describe Batman Vengeance using only 3 words.
overlooked Batman game.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to throw it back to Joe. He's going to help us take a look at the specs of Batman Vengeance in a segment we like to call All Your Specs Are Belong to Us.
How are you, gentlemen? All your base are belong to us. You are on the way to destruction.
Here we go. So the release date for Batman Vengeance was October in 2001 on the PS2. For the GameCube, it was in November of that same year. And then on the Xbox in December. And incidentally, the Xbox launched in November 2001. So it was one of the first DC titles for the Xbox when it came out. The publisher is Ubisoft. I know there are different ways to pronounce that. I think Ubisoft is cooler because it's a nice diss for people when you're playing against them in video games.
Ubisoft, man.
Ubisoft, man. So this was a French company. Developer was the Ubisoft Montreal. The game type is third-person action adventure, and it's only for 1 player, so cannot share with your buddies. All right, so now back to Jarrod. Well, he'll use his yard sale to eBay skills for a segment we like to call Cache Memory.
Thank you, Joe. All right, looking at it on the secondary market, this game is pretty decent. If you have a loose copy, and by that I mean maybe like disc only for the GameCube or PS2 or Xbox, as Joe mentioned, they released a version of it. I forgot to put it in the show notes on the Game Boy Advance, I think, as well. But I don't think it plays the same. I think it's got a different format. Anyways, let me get back on task. Disc only for this game, you get about $10. If you have it complete, instructions, everything, nice box, you're looking at about $35. If you have it factory sealed still, you could get somewhere in the neighborhood of $150.
Wow.
And now that we've got all that pertinent info hashed out, let's take a quick podcast promo break and come back. And when we return, we'll talk about the gameplay of Batman Vengeance.
Who's there? Hyperion to a satyr.
Follow Siskoid's deep, scene-by-scene dive into adaptations of Shakespeare's Hamlet on Hyperion to a Satyr, the Fire and Water Network's Hamlet podcast. To listen or not to listen isn't the question, as you well know. Kenneth Branagh, Derek Jacobi, Mel Gibson, Laurence Olivier, Ethan Hawke, David Tennant, Classics Illustrated, and many more covered every episode at fireandwaterpodcast.com or where you usually get your podcasts.
Is silent.
All right, welcome back from the break. We hope you enjoyed the promo for that friend of the show. Now let's talk about the gaming experience of Batman Vengeance. We'll discuss some of our highs and our lows around the game, and then we'll wrap it up with our final verdicts, and we'll rate the game, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10. Maybe halvesies are allowed. I don't know, Pat. Could do halvesies tonight. The formula is all set.
I hope so. I hope so.
So let's get to it. Let's get into the highs, lows, and what does round one. We will start with Joe in the first round. Do you have a high or a low or a what though? What's the first thing you want to talk about?
I think I want to talk about a high. So I really like how this game totally immerses you into the Batman animated adventure, the new Batman Adventures animated cartoon, but in video game format. I thought that was very, very well done as far as the intent of doing that. And I'll also give an A+ to the voice acting as well. But I do have a low for that as well. But the voice acting for the main characters, absolutely superb. You can't go wrong with, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill as the two main leads. So those are my highs. Do I talk about lows now, or do we kind of pass it the torch and then get back to lows?
I'll tell you what, we'll pass it to Pat so we can all be anxious to find out what his low is in the second round. But I agree, just a quick riff off of what you said, the environment that they created, with the animated Batman series being wildly popular at this time. I mean, it really blows up, 92, 93. And this is sort of the tail end of the Batman animated adventures, but they made a nice environment, as you were saying. So definitely. Yeah.
And then I was trying to look to see how it coincided with the Batman movies at the time. The last Batman movie that we had was, I believe, Batman and Robin.
97, yeah.
So that was, well before Christopher Nolan's films took off, I guess maybe 4 or 5 years later. You had a nice little sweet spot where the animated Batman was definitely on the psyche of the average gamer, the average cartoon watcher. So it fit right into what everybody was thinking about when they think of Batman.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pat, what do you have to add to this conversation, or what new topic are you going to bring up?
Well, I'm going to just kind of add a little bit to the audio that Joe mentioned with the vocal actors that were involved. You had Kevin Conroy and you had Mark Hamill with his role as the Joker. You also had the same voice talent that did Poison Ivy and the same voice talent that also did Mr. Freeze in this one. So you had some pretty decent talent from the animated series that were going on. And Harley Quinn. And then you had a lot of reprising roles. The girl that did Batgirl as well too. You don't got a Robin in this one. But you still have some major characters and the audio that was done. With that, I'm going to move it into a quick low. Maybe you guys have the same low as I do, but control-wise, it seems that with the controls, it could be a little wonky at times when you go into the third-person view on it, or even sometimes when you're trying to move Batman around. The most of it is when you're trying to do the batarang. It's on the right analog and not the, you want it to be on the left so then you can hit the batarang when you need to, hit the button to press the batarang. Instead, it's all on the right side. So you got to let go of your hand and then try to do the batarang at the same time. And it's like, oh, that could be so confusing. And if you're not that good at it, I don't understand. And I'm not a programmer or a game programmer, so
no, you're right, Pat. It was not a great.
Do some quality testing or something.
This is where the PC gamer version of this is superior because you can most a lot more a lot more customization.
Yeah, and you know what? It's earlier on with the the controller. This is early PS2. Wow, I couldn't believe what you mentioned with the Xbox just coming out right on the heels of, the heels of this. And then this is like a really big launch. want to say a launch game.
It's almost a launch
game.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the control wise wasn't bad. It's just in some areas when you're really in the thick of a battle, you want to be a little more friendly for you too.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I'll just continue on with a high. I really like the way the game eases you into learning everything. It does the typical tutorial stage where you get some stuff from Alfred, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't take too terribly long. But prior to that, you get to do your first, like, save the girl, your first basic mission right after that. Because all you really got to do is a couple of jumps, that kind of thing. And I just really loved the presentation of how the credits are coming in as
I love that.
Yeah, I like that too.
I was like, that is so cool. And, the fonts were perfect for the TV show. The little title card, A Girl to Die For, exactly like they would have done on the TV show. Like the attention to detail of the TV show is completely present here. And while it is a early PS2 release, so they hadn't even really maximized everything you could do really with the PS2 yet. I would really think of this more as a really, really, really polished PS1 game.
Yeah.
Is kind of a better way to sell it. But like I said, really polished. Like it's very good. it's a good game. And with that, I'll take it in a round 2 and we'll go back to Joe. I'm dying to hear what his low is on the voice work. What do you?
Well, it's actually, it's actually twofold. So it's voice work and it's surrounding the cutscenes. So the voice work for the average thug that you're fighting is so corny. Like the dude is like, "Who's there? You're through.
Show yourself."
Yeah.
Wait, that's a different game.
That's a different game, but it's an awesome game. But it's just like that dialogue was just so corny, and you'll hear so much of it that it just kind of just grates on you as you're wailing on random thugs. And I didn't dig that part at all. And I think the other part that kind of bothered me, and maybe it's just because we lived in such a modern era, is the cutscenes just seem not as great as like the regular gameplay. They were blurry, but you got to think at the time this is the.
I think they were rushed a little bit. Maybe.
I mean, it wasn't as smooth as far as the animation that I would expect to have on cutscenes. There was a lot of pauses as they switched from scene to scene. Yeah, I think that was kind of a programming issue, but didn't like the cutscenes too much. I mean, I love the storytelling, but the visual effects of it, I just didn't like.
And I agree with you on that. I did notice sometimes like Batman's mouth would just disappear while I was talking, and then it would show back up and like in the cutscenes and stuff. I didn't want to mention this in round 1 because I didn't know if this is where you're going in round 2, but I wanted to toss onto that. The big plot twist is, this girl was Harley Quinn the whole time. It was like, she sounds just like her. Like, you might have considered like using a different voice actress for when she was incognito.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but like in one of the first cutscenes where they show Harley Quinn and she's looking in front of a mirror, there's a picture of the girl that she turned into. Oh, you just can't really see it as well, but it's just to the right of her.
Oh, that's cool.
On the mirror. Yeah.
Just one of those little details you would expect to see in the cartoon. Again, it's very, very good. But I'm talking over some of Pat's time. So, Pat, what else do you have?
I want to go into a high. Some of the video, I thought, the gameplay video as you run around was really cool looking. I thought aesthetically fit the cartoon. A little dark in some places. You can't see distant wise, but the animated show was a little dark in some places as well too. All in all, I think they did a really great job at it, making it believable and immersible that you were actually in this, that animated universe of Batman from the animated show. I really felt like you were there, and I thought when Batman flies, you get to see him fly like that, and just like, oh man, I can feel like I was Batman at the time when he would do that, like, and you just that sound again is.
I was wondering,
how's it go?
In reverse. There we go.
Nice.
But the aesthetics, Jarrod, you mentioned, just the title sequence, the thought and the care that they did to make you feel like you were part of this kind of a live action animation that was happening.
Yeah, definitely one of the things that helps to make the game better is being in the animated world. The animated world of that Batman show was very stripped down and clean and slick and all that, which is nice to carry over to a video game because you can have it. It doesn't hurt your draw distances and all that stuff. It's not overly detailed because it doesn't have to be. It reflects well what you would see in the television show, in the cartoon. And I think one of the more brilliant things that they did to add the scope and scale and the feel of Gotham City was the little vehicular sections where you do the jet or you do the car. You know, they don't overstay their welcome. Sometimes those do. The jet one could be a little long where you're just flying all over the city, but at least it gives you this really big scope of the city. So I saw the trade-off there. Like, this is very tropish of games of the air. Like, let's give them a quick vehicle stage, you know, or most of the time people hate the vehicle stage. And these weren't, I didn't hate them. I liked them for what they showed us of Gotham City, but I would have shortened them just a little bit.
Yeah, come on. You're in a jet fighting a helicopter. Why can't you catch up to that?
That is a little strange.
Going back to the game, that gameplay aspect, they did give you a variety of different things to do with this. You had vehicle action, you had running around action, you had puzzle action that you had to solve too.
Oh yeah, those puzzles were pretty cool, like the little almost Rubik's Cube ones.
Yeah.
They didn't overstay their welcome. You know what I mean? It was somewhat just enough to get you through and kind of mix it up a little.
Since we're kind of in the final round and just kind of shooting anything that's on your mind here, I'd have one thing that I really liked. And like I said, I feel like this is an overlooked Batman game. Like, it's very commonplace for gamers to say, you know, aside from the 1989 Batman NES game, there's never been a good Batman game until Arkham came along. And I'm like, wait a minute. This one's not so bad. One thing I really liked about it was how they helped it be more intuitive when you were in an area that had a bat grapple spot. You get a bat grapple flash. It says, hey, there's something in this area. And if you pull up that screen, the little arrow kind of tells you which way it is. Yeah. So you don't spend like all day like looking around like where, you know, it's like, I know I'm in an area with a grapple because it tells me that. I turn on the first person view for the grapple thing, and the little reticle has a little arrow that if you just follow it, you go, oh, there it is. And I was like, oh man, I wish that was in so many other games that I've played in my lifetime because that was really handy.
Yeah, like Arkham. Couldn't find the greats.
Yes, like that would have been nice in Arkham, but like, hey, track these greats for me, homie. You know, exactly. I mean, at least there they gave you detective mode so you could see the.
Yeah.
But the fact that it would literally point towards house like that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
What else is still on your mind, Joe, as we sort of wrap up the discussion of this kind of cool game?
I don't think we talked about even though it's sort of open world, is definitely a very linear play progression.
That's true.
To the game. So they try to keep it as focused as possible. So you kind of know the next objective. You're not kind of wandering around. So and I do give it props for kind of giving that guided gameplay for the gamers.
Yeah. As you were mentioning that, it made me think of the Mr. Freeze's levels. And I got a kick out of the fact that in the previous levels, because, you know, bad guys get harder as you go. In the previous levels, beating up Joker's pretty big muscle-bound thugs was not too hard. And then it gets a little harder when you fight Mr. Freeze's, like, skinny 98-pound girls.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, how are these tiny girls so much tougher than those big guys?
And they're in the G.I. Joe snow job outfits. And
yes.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned outfits. This had an almost... since you mentioned outfits, this was almost the first appearance of Hush, because if you remember, there was the dude who was in the trench coat with the bandages on his face.
Oh, that's right.
And I was like, oh, that looks like Hush. And I was like, wait a minute, Hush doesn't even exist for another 2 or 3 years. This is 2001.
You bring up another point too, because you get to play as Bruce Wayne.
Oh yeah,
not Batman. You get to play as Bruce Wayne in a level. So
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I think Wikipedia called it "you're a drifter." They didn't really say you play as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, Matches Malone. I think you were Matches Malone, his little underground persona.
Yeah, well, he wasn't in the back. He had a beard.
No, he had a beard. Yeah,
right. I think he did the drifter thing, and I feel like there was I'm going off of an old memory. I will have a section about that in the later on, folks. But this is a game that I actually played all the way through and beat back in the day. But not so bad, huh? Not so bad.
And for the time, yeah, it was dope.
Yeah. I just thought one more cool thing to talk about. It did a little bit of variety of gameplay too, because I always remember fighting Mr. Freeze, and you had to use like these little timed mines to drop the canisters on his head as he walked under them.
Right.
So it wasn't a straight up, if you try to fight him one-on-one, he's going to light you up. That's going to be it. But like, I like the environmental, that's the word I'm looking for, environmental battle stuff.
Oh yeah. And you had to figure it out. There was no tutorial. To be like, yeah, you got to drop these canisters on him to bring down his health. You have to figure that part out.
The worst part is he figured that out too. He'll drop canisters on you. Like, dang it, man.
So in a way, they kind of teach you. Like,
yeah, good point. And it's just a scratch of the surface of reminding me of the Arkham battle, where he learns in the Arkham battle. He doesn't necessarily learn here, but he does learn to drop the canisters on you, which, as Joe just said, he's teaching you how to beat him. Yeah, which is pretty interesting. All right, let's get into the actual scoring of this. We have a 1 to 10 scale for this here game, Batman Vengeance. And as a reminder, 5 is average. It means it's okay. You know, it was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was just okay. And with that, we will start. We'll let Joe kick it off. 1 to 10, Joe. Where are you going to rank Batman Vengeance?
I'm going to give it a solid 8.
Yeah.
A solid 8. No halvesies today.
No halvesies. That's going to use them regardless. Speaking of which, Pat, what do you think?
I am going to give it 7.5, but since I can have a halfsies, I'm going to bump it up to an 8.
He's too halvesies.
Oh, I can't do that?
Sure you can.
I'm at an 8 with Joe. I think this is an average game. It's a cool game that, as everybody says, and you said, it's overlooked.
Yeah, definitely overlooked. And I don't know if this has ever happened before, but going into this, I was like, I'm going to give this game an 8. So we are all on the same track on this one. I'm going to give it a 6 and 4 halvesies. I'm sorry.
What?
We're doing fractions now.
No, I was really thinking this is a solid 8 game. I mean, if Arkham's, that's a 10 to me.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the Arkham games are 10s for me. And I'm like, this thing, not so bad. You know, we may be kinder to it than maybe someone who's in their 20s or teens, because, you know, we remember that era of gaming. But like, for that era, as I described it earlier, I think this is a super polished PS1 game.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's good. So I gave it an 8.
Nice.
But it seems like we might have forgotten something, and I know what it is. I'm going to throw it over to Joe November, our on-staff musical genius, and he's going to talk about the music in a segment called Superconductor.
Thanks, Jarrod. So, did a little bit of research on the music for this game. The music for the PS2 version, which is what we're largely talking about, was composed by a composer named Sean K. Clement. And Sean had worked on other notable titles such as Open Season on the Xbox 360, Need for Speed Most Wanted on the Xbox 360, The Sims on the PS2. And one thing I didn't know is that he did the score for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV series. So, yeah, well-polished individual. And you can tell in just how the music was made that he knew what he was doing. And apparently the music was so well thought of that there is an annual Interactive Achievement Awards. And this game was nominated in the category of Outstanding Achievement in an Original Composition. But it lost to a game called Tropico, which is like a construction and management sim that largely contained Latin-style Caribbean music. So that's what it lost to, but at least it was nominated.
Tropico beat Batman?
Wow,
what a great world we living in.
I know, barely.
Must have had some fun tunes now.
Yeah, I bet it did. I actually wanted to kind of check it out. When you go online, you can actually download the original soundtrack. There's a website called khinsider.com where you can download, I think it's about 30 or so tracks for Batman Vengeance. And when I was going through the game and listening to the music, I'd say my favorite track is when you're on the train during episode 3 in the plant food. It's a nice, jazzy, dark, jazzy tune that will make an awesome remix. It's like a kind of jazzy interpolation of the game's theme music. I really liked it. And then there's another one called Bomb, and it's a very Chemical Brothers-y drum beat, very fast type beat that reminds me of early 2000s blockbuster action movie trailer music. I really like that one. I'd say the least favorite of mine was pretty much the boss level music. I mean, they all kind of sound the same after a while, just kind of urgent. You know, you got to kill this guy, and the stakes are high. There's really not a whole lot of variation when it comes to the boss music, so didn't really think too much of that. But sadly, no one decided to remix any of this game at all. There were no remixes whatsoever. So if anybody's listening to this podcast, you have an opportunity.
Oh, man. It's funny you picked up on that train because I definitely, when I was playing it and watching some playthrough video of it prior to this podcast, I was like, that music is catchy. It's almost like something you'd hear on the train.
Yeah.
You know, but it just has just enough adventure of it. It was great.
Like, it felt like a little bit of elements of GoldenEye in the music itself. Just a little bit. But it was definitely different enough where it was very noticeable. And it kind of helped add to the atmosphere of the gameplay. So I really like that part.
I'm looking for a Joe November Vengeance remix.
We can't give Joe any more work, okay? He's got.
So that's all for Superconductor musical segment. Now let's throw it over to Pat to lead us in a discussion on how well the game captures the essence of the comic book in a segment called Reformatted.
All right. Well, with that, how well did, as Joe said, this capture the essence of the comic book? And really the animated show. Yeah, there were comic books done from the animated show as well. But I think let's focus a little bit more on the animation style from the actual TV show itself. So, Jarrod, I'm going to toss it back over to you. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, as we talked about before, I think they did a really, really solid job of that. And I was thinking the same thing as you, Pat, like the Gotham Adventures comic book.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we call this Comics to Console, but it's really based off the cartoon. But then again, they had the comics that were based off
That's true.
As well. Yeah. And this is definitely based on the later years of the cartoon. I think Joe mentioned that earlier in the episode, like the later years. So some of the designs are tweaked a little bit. You can especially see it in the Joker. It's that, I think people call it the Batman Superman era or something like that. It's the tail end, which would make sense because this is 2001 and the show's been on since 1992. So it's more of those designs, but they never really lost the real, you know, the through line, the whole vibe, the whole thing. So I think as far as capturing the essence of the quote unquote comic book, which of course was based on the show, which the game was based on, it's all circular.
Show on the company. Yeah.
Just amazing. We talked about the right fonts. We talked about the title cards, the design, the voice work, the depiction of Gotham City. I can't say enough about it. So it is absolutely, if you ever thought to yourself, man, I want to play in that world, in that Batman animated world, here's your opportunity.
Agreed.
Joe, we'll flip it over to you. Anything else to add to what Jarrod had said?
You know, one thing we know about Batman is he is a detective. And I thought this game did a really good job of honing in on kind of the detective tendencies of him trying to solve a mystery of what's going on in Gotham. Who is the little boy? Who is the woman? And trying to solve all the things in between to put the connections together. It asks more questions as it goes throughout the game. And so you continue to play more to figure out how to solve it. And so the detective aspect of Batman, I thought was well captured in this game.
Definitely. I couldn't agree with you guys more. I gushed about it earlier on about how good I thought it represented that ambiance of the animated universe that it was representing. So comic book wise too, basically it's just kind of like watching a TV show in comic book form, how they represented it in the comic. So I thought it was very, very well done.
Nice.
Now that we've got the kind of comic to game, or maybe TV series animation to game comparison out of the way, let's all take some time to talk about our memories around this game. let's go ahead and hop into the DeLorean. It's nice and warmed up. I got it up to about 88 miles per hour, and we're going to talk about our memories of this game and what was going on in our lives in a segment called Save Point. During our Save Point discussion, we will give you some context for the time that our featured game was released by discussing video game news of that time, what was playing on TV, and what were some of the chart-topping songs from that time. And then we'll wrap it all up in our personal memories surrounding Batman Vengeance. So here are the video game events and notable releases for October 2001.
All right. The landscape of video games is about to change in a big, big way because Grand Theft Auto 3 is about to be released. And it's going to open up the world of gaming. That's almost a pun because it's sort of one of those very early big sandbox games where there's so much to do. And it's going to leave a mark on gaming forever and ever. So yes, Grand Theft Auto 3 is going to be released in late 2001.
Was that the one right before Vice City?
Yep.
Okay.
It was the first time they went to sandbox.
Okay. I didn't play that one. I started with Vice City.
I did actually go back and play. It was years and years and years later, but a Game Informer magazine many years ago did a top 200 games of all time list. And I decided I was just going to start playing them. Okay. So it was one of the ones I played to check off the list.
I've never played a GTA game.
They're not for me. But I did beat it. But I was like, it's not for me.
I think for me, if I played Vice, I would just be driving around listening to the radio.
Exactly. That's why they're not for me. Like, because you got to go do like these crimes and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not wired to do that. I'm not a crimes guy.
I was actually talking to someone because I'm doing physical therapy for my wrist. I broke my wrist back in November. We were talking about music and something like that, video games, and we were talking about the San Andreas game. And we were listening to like some 60s music. I was telling the guys, like, I don't think of the era that the music came in. I think of me playing the video game, listening to this particular type of music. That's what I think of now. And that's just indicative of the times we're in where video game culture is so prominent that you associate, those classic tunes with video games.
With the game, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. So another game that came out during this time, which was notable for some, but not to me, is a game called Pikmin for GameCube. I had to look this game up because this game was not for my demographic whatsoever. I think it's like a strategy game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about all that I know about it. But apparently the kids loved it.
And it's still around.
You're up against my bad memory, Joe, because I was like, when I was looking at the games, I was like, I think Joe is a Pikmin fan, so I gave it to you on the script, and I was wrong.
Not me, buddy. I was like, I was playing RPGs. If it was an RPG, I was probably playing that.
There is a new Pikmin game out on the Switch that came out recently. So
yeah, the series
is still around.
Has persevered. Yeah, I for some reason thought Joe was into it. I feel like maybe one time we visited Joe and Jordan played Pikmin at your house and kind of got into it, but it wasn't necessarily your game.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Man. So anyway, yeah, notable game.
Well, I'll go ahead and go to another notable game. Was Civilization 3 on the Windows for the PC out there. Civilization, that's kind of one like the Tropico where it was, you're building, putting down like SimCity in the early days, that kind of stuff where you're doing it. That wasn't a game for me. Age of Empires was the most I got into. Well, I can't say that. I guess, yeah, Age of Empires was a little bit good. I liked Warcraft when it came out and Warcraft 2. I liked those kind of games and StarCraft.
Mm-hmm.
But these games were a little bit more like, too much for me.
Another swing and a miss for me making the script because I was like, this is the best selling. Like this was a big seller.
It was. It was.
Like, Pat loves PC games, so I'm going to give this one to Pat.
It's those strategy games.
Yeah,
you
got a big map and you're building your world.
I remember guys at work because Joe and I were in the military at this time. I remember guys at work talking about, hey, Civ 3's coming, it's coming. Like there was people who were fired up about it.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right,
Yeah,
I know what it is. I
sucked at
It
it.
didn't really appeal to me. I mean, even with StarCraft was one of the biggest ones. I only played it because the military told me to.
That's right. You had to play it at certain colleges you went to.
Yep.
Oh, really? Just
Yeah, it was actually in the curriculum.
It was in the curriculum.
Really?
Yeah.
when
Well, I mean, it's a strategy game, so I can understand that.
they
part
actually
of it,
redid the little spaceships and turned them into actual Air Force aircraft, and it's the same code and everything. Anyway.
Oh, interesting. I guess I would have thought Red Alert would have been what you guys would have played or something.
That probably would have made more sense, but
That would have made more sense. Maybe budgets. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know.
Well, Pat, we're throwing everyone a curveball this time because we usually talk about movies, but I decided to make this show a little different from LONGBOX CRUSADE. And not only do you see what's coming next, I thought, well, we'll talk about TV shows at the time. For this particular episode, since it took place in the fall, I have 3 TV shows that launched.
Oh,
in this, October 2001 is when these shows were brand new.
Wow.
Season 1, so that's what you got coming up next.
all right. Well, let me start off with what came out this fall for 2001 on the tube was the TV series Scrubs. And man, that's one I kind of watch here and there. I haven't watched it all, but a lot of good actors in that one. A lot of fun guys. You have the 2 main guys that are in it. They're funny guys. You have I can't remember the guy's name who was the other doctor that was like the hard guy, but
I think he was played by John C.
Yes. Yeah, he was a funny guy too. So, oh man, Scrubs. It went to become something.
It certainly did. Did you ever dabble in Scrubs, Joe?
I watched a little bit of it, but it wasn't my thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I caught one here and there, and I chuckle, but I was like, hey, but that's
why I like the janitor guy.
I've heard he's quite good too. Yes, but that's why it's in at number 3 for the ratings for a new show that came out this fall, and I've got number 2, so doing slightly better than Scrubs with a show called 6 Feet Under. And I feel like that was an HBO series.
I think you're right. Yeah,
I think you're right. Yeah.
And I've never seen a bit of it, but it did very well. And I've seen people, DVD box sets and stuff. So I know people liked it, but I got nothing on it. Really, I know of it.
All I can think of it had something to do around a funeral home, maybe. Or doing something like I don't
make sense.
Mortuary drama.
Yeah,
people are dying to see it.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't get to it because I was buried with other stuff. Save us, Joe.
All right. So at number 1 on this list was kind of a well-known series about some superheroes in a small town called Smallville. Smallville, admittedly, I didn't watch it when it came out. I caught a few episodes here and there since then. I have not watched the entire set of series all the way through, but I do know that it just launched so many different careers and just enabled the superhero kind of storytelling to propagate into Hollywood, across multiple generations, whether it's, stories told through the show Heroes, whether it was, Warner Brothers taking on various DC movies. But Smallville was definitely a catalyst for a lot of what we know today as comic book movies, comic book TV shows.
That was appointment viewing for me. I was like, I want to say it was Tuesday nights. I may be wrong on that. My memory's hazy, but like appointment viewing. It's probably the last show I ever had for appointment viewing because that's not a thing anymore. But that was all the way. I faded out around season 6. No hate or anything for it. Just kind of life. I had a son. It kind of took me in a different direction. But man, I adored the show, especially those early seasons. Can't say enough about it, especially those early seasons because it was a show. I could talk a long time about this and I won't, but I was just going to say that it was great to watch because it was a show about parenting. You really got to know why Clark turned out the way he did by watching his mom and dad. And you got to know why Lex turned out the way he did by watching his father. Mm-hmm. And it was like, as a dad, you watch it through a father's eyes and it's a whole different experience.
I bet. Yeah. I've heard some rumors that they're trying to bring it back in some capacity. I don't know how they'll do that. And I don't know what it looks like, but it would be interesting to see what happens with that.
It would be. It was already interesting enough to see them like have, let's just say it, dreamy Tom Welling is like, oh, he's Clark Kent and everybody picks on him. I'm like, he's the most handsome dude at their school.
Yeah.
He's got a terrific smile and he's super likable.
Yep.
But hey, it was very much a CW teen drama, but it kind of elevated to something more. Anyway, I think that I can go on. Pat, if you had anything to add about Smallville, I can run at the mouth about it.
I didn't watch it at the time. I do have, I think, the first 2 seasons on DVD. It's still kind of going through it, but I think it draws you into its environment and what they did with it. It was superhero-y, but not superhero because Clark didn't put on the suit.
No.
And so
it flying to like season 6 or something like that.
It gave you that teen angsty, high schooly drama that, I like. I'm a 90210 fan, so I that roped me in at that point. So yeah, fun. And as Joe said, just what it opened up for TV shows again. And to see Tom Welling replay his part when they did Crisis on Infinite Earths on the Flash show.
That was awesome. I was really into the Flash, and so I saw that, and I was like, that's
I was
awesome.
like, oh man, that's really cool. To get Tom to come back and do that part was really cool.
Yeah, I bet he's still dreamy.
Yeah, well, that's what I was like.
Yeah.
Oh, Clark, you're such a nerd. You're the most handsome, athletic nerd we've ever seen. Anyways, back to you, Pat. This is your segment.
I get that a lot too, as I push up my glasses. All right. Well, and here are the top 3 songs that were playing on our favorite pop radio station during October 2001. That's my changing the radio
dial
song.
in noise I got.
All right. So at number 3 was a song that was basically No Scrubs Part 2.
Well said.
It was called Hit 'Em Up Style, Oops, by Blue Cantrell. It was propagating all over the airways.
It was nice, like Buck Wild, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a nice catchy tune to it. So yeah, I really like that song.
Yeah, it had a real catchy little riff to it. It's fun. When I make these scripts, sometimes I'm like, because I saw that when I went, I got a vague recollection, and half a second from hitting play on YouTube, I was like, I totally remember this song.
Yeah, totally.
Well, coming in at number 2 was "I'm a Real" by J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez herself.
I'm trying to remember that one.
I'm real. What you get is what you see.
Okay.
And it had a remix with Ja Rule that was also very popular.
Okay, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Right.
Okay, that's the one I'm thinking of with Ja Rule.
Yeah, it went to the top of the charts with just her, and then it remixed with Ja Rule, and it did really well again. It was a 2-rounder.
That part I didn't know that it was a remix. I just remember only hearing about Ja Rule,
which is funny. Hey man, I might have some questions that Ja Rule doesn't have the answers to right now.
Where is Ja Rule?
What's funny is, again, when I went to listen to these to refresh my memory on the YouTubes, the one that really comes up is the Ja Rule one, but I was like, this is not that. So I had to find the one that was just heard. I was like, okay, so I remembered it. Yeah.
Nice.
And I tell you this, I got the number 1 song, and I didn't have to look this one up. All right, this is like, we all know this one. It is "Fallen" by Alicia Keys.
Yeah. It's a very, very famous James Brown sample, instantly recognizable. I think this was like her intro big hit, to just get into the scene back in the early 2000s all the way into now. She performed at the Super Bowl this year. So I think this song kind of kicked off her career.
Yeah, I know she did some stuff with Prince, wrote a couple for her, I think. She's just really talented. She did a James Bond theme. Remember that, Pat? She did Quantum of Solace.
Oh, yeah.
With Jack White.
Yes, yep. All right.
Yeah, she's just a very, very talented lass.
Although she did crack a note when she was singing in the Super Bowl, and the internet jumped all over about it. But
I actually didn't know that, but I don't. Sometimes
I don't get
those internet trends.
Yeah, it was trending for a while.
I'll cut her some slack. I mean, she's been in the game a long time, and you know what? If I was up in front of all those people,
I might miss a note.
I might miss a note. Yeah, she's earned the right to miss a note.
Yeah.
But Blue King Trail in the back going, oops.
Oh, I haven't heard that song in such a long time.
You're gonna listen to it after we record, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I know it. That's why I said I get back wild. It's I was DJing at the time, so as we go into what kind of standout personal memories surrounding today's featured game brings you back. This would be something I was playing at the time. One of the bigger things that I remember from October 2001, I had just gotten married in 2001. So I've been married that long, 20 some years, whatever. Carried one with a half season and all that. Yeah. So I've been married that long since then. But in October 2001, we went on our honeymoon. And the biggest memory that stands up to me at this time is my daughter. She was like 3 years old, around there. So we get everybody in the SUV to go. She's in the back and she gets sick. Nothing worse than having to travel from Wisconsin to Florida, because we went to Disney World for our first time. The sick kid, you're traveling and you got to go because, it's like, I can't not go. I got everything planned and I got all that done. And then you got to deal with the sickness in the car and just parenting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's a memory I have, but it's a good memory because I obviously to this day I still have it 20 some years later.
Nice. So for me, I was in the military at the time, so I think the most prominent memory is 9/11 just happened a month prior. I was stationed at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, working at U.S. Strategic Command. And we were thoroughly busy getting our global war on terrorism on at that time. That's where my focus was just work, making sure that we were defending this country and the uncertainty of the time of, what was going to happen next with, the bombings and the planes and things like that. It was definitely very, very prevalent. So not so great memories, but definitely very strong memories around that time frame.
And mine are going to be obviously similar. I was at Maxwell Air Force Base at the time, teaching the Aerospace Basic course, where we did use StarCraft as part of our curriculum. Yeah, just really making that bold shift from a peacetime Air Force to a wartime Air Force was, kind of jarring. It's one of those things that, it could happen, but when it happens for real, it's like, up until then, being in the military was really fun. The fun factor takes a dip when it starts to get real. Yeah. So, I'm with Joe on that. Then going directly to the game itself, Batman Vengeance. This is a game I bought. I take that back. My friend Joey C., he's a college friend of mine. He came up to go to SOS, Squadron Officer School, and he gave me the game as a gift.
Nice.
So I was playing that, and it was not too far off from when you came, Joe. I don't remember when exactly you came to SOS. You probably remember better than me. Probably in 02 sometime, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it's 02, 03, something like that.
Somewhere in there. Yeah, because I remember this was the game I had sort of finished right before you and I took on the infamous Baldur's Gate.
Ooh, Baldur's Gate. Ooh.
I think I finished Batman right before we did Baldur's Gate because my friend Joey had come to SOS right before you did. And he, like I said, he came over and said, "Hey, I brought you a present," because he knew I just bought the PS2 and right before I had moved to Maxwell from Pope. And actually playing this game and beating it back in the day. And then right after that about was Baldur's Gate time. And that's when Joe was in town and he came over to play Baldur's Gate. Okay, with all of our memories packed away, it's time to kick off the comments with special shout outs to our Crusaders Club members. These are the fine folks who've joined our crusade. They enjoy early access to special Longbox episodes. They get to vote on show content, and they get priority seating to be guests on shows. So these are the folks reaping the benefits and giving some much appreciated support to our shows.
Alan Wright,
Angelica Wolf,
Oh, Auburn Elvis,
Bill Beer,
Braxton Underwood,
Captain Entropy,
Clark Westfield,
Clinton Robertson,
Dave Collins, Battle Wagon,
Battle Wagon.
Gary V,
Gerald Green,
Jason King,
Jason Lady,
Jeremy L.,
Jim German. I hope you like the German too.
with the little Jimmy.
and personal favorite is me, Joe Thomas.
One of my favorites too. John Watson,
Josh Strickland,
Candace Ward,
Captivating Kathy Bright, the MVP,
Mark Ross,
Matt and Lissy Paso,
Maxwell Traver,
Miranda W,
PD Devins,
Paul Hicks,
Rick from Jeff and Rick Present,
Rob Morgan,
Samantha Maney,
Sean Urbanski,
Spidey 67,
Spreadsheet,
Steve Cronin,
Tim Price,
Tony Pennington.
and Toronto Cop.
If we missed anyone on the list, we apologize. Keep in mind we record these episodes well in advance of release, so if you're a recent edition, we will add you soon, but no worries. You can always let us know that we missed you by sending a hate-filled email to contact@longboxcrusade.com, and we will get it straightened out. If you're asking yourself, how do I become a Crusaders Club member? Well, that's simple. Go to patreon.com/longboxcrusade for as little as $1 a month. You get access to the amazing world of the Crusaders Club. Come and check it out. If you don't have any extra scratch laying around, you can always write a review for the show wherever you're listening to it, on whatever platform you're on. We'd appreciate it. And of course, we do put these out on YouTube, which is also Longbox Crusade. Maybe go comment over there. Give us a like, give us a subscribey, a little something like that. And with that, we will get into the feedback. We got one short one and one really, really long one. So, Pat, I will let you do the short one. Joe, you start boning up on that long one.
Well, thank you, Jarrod. You know how I like to talk and read things, so I appreciate that. All right, I'll take some feedback from last episode of Wolverine on the NES. I remember that one. One of the comments comes in from Serpent Matt, and he says, "That was a lot of fun. I second a lot of the views y'all had. If you do decide to delve into the Uncanny X-Men NES game, I'll allow myself to be brutalized by experiencing that game again. If you need someone along for that ride," well, you know, we do.
We could bring a guest on.
Yeah. Serpent Matt's a game player, so I like that.
Game is something else, man.
It's one way to describe it.
What do you think, Joe? Do you got this Jason Lady comment in you?
Yeah, let's do it. So Jason Lady says, "My dudes, finally gave this a listen, and as both an avid X-Men collector back in 1991 when this game was released, and an owner of this game back then, I can shed some light on some things you guys were puzzled about. So number one, why is Havoc in this game? This game came out at the tail end of X-Men's Outback era, where Havoc was a prominent team member. He and Wolverine starred in the aptly named Havoc and Wolverine Painted Art Prestige format miniseries in 1988, which, depending on how long this game took to get developed, may have put Havoc at the top of the list to guest star in the game. Number two, why are Jubilee and Psylocke in this game? Dudes, as you guys noted, this was the heyday of Jim Lee drawing X-Men in the comic. At the time, the team was scattered all over the world, either solo or in small groups. There's a stretch where Wolverine, Psylocke, who was newly transformed into her ninja self in UXM number 256, and Jubilee were a tight trio traveling the world battling evil. Plus, Jubilee has been a long-time sidekick to Wolverine, especially in 1991. Why can you summon Havoc and he just stands around while you heal? Oh man, Havoc does more than that. He actually destroys all the bad guys on the screen while Wolverine heals. Press left or right and you control Havoc while Wolverine heals. Left, he destroys all bad guys on that side of the screen. Right, he does the same to the evildoers unlucky enough to be over there. As a Havoc fan, I love that part of the game. Just a few thoughts. This is one of the few NES cartridges I owned. Those suckers weren't cheap, and I liked it a lot. These games were very much marketed for kids. That wasn't beer, that was soda pop. The awesome game cover art was on a comic book first, Wolverine number 27 from 1990. It's been reused as the cover for Wolverine Omnibus since then.
Good job, Joe. Hey, good job, Jason Lady, for sending in those key details. I'm really glad that we got your nostalgia juices flowing on that.
I like that he calls us dudes.
Yeah, That is us. We are my dudes. I still think it was beer. Oh, great. Thank you, Jason and Matt, for sending those in. Thank you, Joe, for reading those. Behind the scenes, I'm just coming off of a cold, so I didn't want to read them.
No worries.
Joe saved me. Joe, why don't you give the folks a reminder how they get in touch with us if they want to chat about this show or any of the shows under the Longbox Crusade umbrella?
Definitely. So you can find any of our many fine programs on anywhere excellent podcasts are found. We're also on YouTube, or visit our website at www.longboxcrusade.com. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going, hit us up on social media. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at Longbox Crusade. And you can also email us at contact@longboxcrusade.com. And finally, you can leave us a very explicit voicemail if you want at 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone. You said it could be explicit.
You did, yeah.
My dudes.
All right. I want to thank the whole team for being here. And here's where you can find us on the internet. We'll start with Pat.
Well, Jarrod, I'm glad you asked. You can find me on the Twitter X at Christatos01. Joe, where can they find you?
Oh, pretty much anywhere there is a social media platform under Joe November. I'm on SoundCloud, X, Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok. Yeah, you can find me. How about you, Jarrod?
Well, thank you, Joe, and I'm glad you asked. I'm at Yard Sale Artist on the X, the Facebook, the Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. Do you have anything coming up, Joe, in the next couple of months?
I'll be working on a new album. I'm currently being mentored by a very, very prominent artist. I won't name his name right now just because we want to keep it on the down low. But he's one of my favorites. I'm thrilled to be talking with this gentleman, and I'm really looking forward to the feedback that he gives me. So I'm very excited about what I'm about to put out.
All right, fellas, thank you for all that. Thanks for joining us. We hope you continue to join us as we go on a crusade to play them all.
The music themes for this show are done by musical genius Joe November. Please check out his SoundCloud at Joseflin99. That's Joseflin 99. You will not regret it.
I did not think it wise to overwhelm you while your memory was still fragile. So rather than that, I thought it best to assume a temporary form. The princess was my own daughter, my dear Zelda. You must save her and do whatever it takes to annihilate Ganon.
Is it Ja Rule?
No. Nobody knows where he is.
I guess it was Michael McDonald.
I wish. But yeah.
Dude, Michael McDonald is awesome.
Oh, yeah. You don't know me, you're my baby.
I was just about to close the show, too. We needed outtakes. All right.
No more running down the wrong road. Is that Michael McDonald? Yeah.
Joe's impression was spot on.
It was spot on, like Family Guy, spot on.
Taking it to those streets.